games. It's ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames.
How's it going, Scrub Gamers? Welcome back to another video here at Scrub Games, and today we have our first Deck of the Week deck profile for Set 5 Legends of the Force. Now, we aren't doing this a little bit early because, well, it's almost the end of, well, Set 4, or like just Set 4 now, because we've got, from when this is, well, when this comes out on Friday, we've got the pre-release next weekend. And I can't remember if we've got ours Friday. I think I was meant to be Saturday and Sunday, but I think it might be Friday as well. Because it normally is, but so we might not have a locals next week, so it'll be a pre-release. And then after that, well, we probably got like a draft and stuff, so it'll be a little bit of time before I actually play the game. But we've got some deck lists, because we've had the set like fully revealed for a couple of weeks now, or like almost most of this month. And testing has been begun, so I've been diving more into that because I'm hyped for this set and not as impressed with the last set. So I've been testing a lot of this. And a deck I've been having fun with and enjoying, and I've just been testing quite a bit this past week, is Yellow Thrawn. Now, you might be thinking, Yellow Thrawn, that doesn't seem like a good color combination for Thrawn, but it is actually quite fun. It's not the most competitive, but it's a lot of fun, and it's beneficial, and it gets, well, it's a good one from the new set because it gets some good stuff that make it actually a thing where it wasn't before. So we're going to get into that. We're going to go for the list, then go over the deck list. And I don't have a side deck for this one, so you have to worry about the sideboard stuff, but we'll go to the list and explain the reasons for it. So before we get into that, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to keep updated with my videos as and when they drop. And also by clicking that notification bell, you can get alerts when my videos do drop, so you can watch them there and then, or at a later time that suits you best. So without that all out of the way, let's get into and check out my Grand Admiral Thrawn Cunning list. Right, so here is the deck list. So we've got Grand Admiral Thrawn Yellow, so we've gone for Chopper base because, well, the only thing I've seen thrown in, apart from the Ahsoka series, is the Rebels is when I saw him from. So he's going against the Spectres and stuff, so I've put him with the Chopper base because, to be honest, the yellow bases aren't that interesting. And for the next set, he is a leader that doesn't really need to use the Force, and I haven't seen anything beneficial from the Force for him, so I've not gone for a Force base. By going for just normal 30 health base, because the other rare base we've got aren't interesting. I don't want to reuse in the map village because what you do once in combos is not worth the lesser health. I don't feel like it could be worth trying. I haven't tried it myself. I've just been going for 30 health base because I want that maximum health. But this is what I've been enjoying. So this is the list that we're going to quickly just glance over because I'm going to explain all the card choices and get into those a bit more in depth. But yeah, Grand Admiral Thrawn and his benefit of doubling up when defeated, and the yellow base have maximum health and have the access to all the yellow cards. We've got a fair bit. We've got like an almost equal half and half of all the colors, I think. Just got a bit more blue than we have yellow. But it is a lot of fun. And we get into the reasons why of this. But then if you want to check out this deck or even test it out, there's the QR code down at the bottom right hand corner, so if you can go ahead and use that if you want to get the list, or you can just go in the description down below and get the list from there because it's in there for you to just copy paste and try on Carabas and Petronaki. So let's go ahead and check in and kind of understand the list and why it's a thing from set 2, or set 5, sorry. So the first thing you should probably understand is the leader, and that is because the leaders are what make up the core of the deck, because when you're building a deck, you're mainly focusing on not just the aspects, but the leader's ability as well. The leader is the reason why you play in that deck with it, because each of them have different effects and they influence what the deck wants to do. And for Grand Admiral Thrawn, he is a leader from the last set, so set 4, and he's not one of those that is able to jump on a vehicle like some of them were, able to like either deploy on the ground or like pilot a vehicle. He's not a pilot because he commands a Star Destroyer. He doesn't pilot it himself because he just commands it. But his effect is pretty cool because he's got a way to double up those when defeated effects, which are pretty cool. So his effects on both sides are when you use a when defeated ability, you can use that ability again. And when he's in the leader area, you need to exhaust him to do that. And when he's in the leader, when he's deployed, you can only use it once a round. So when he's in the leader area, you need to exhaust him as the way to do it. And when he's in the ground, you can do it anytime. You can choose when you want to do it, but then you can only use that ability once a round. So it means either side and apart from his when deployed, his deployed turn, you can only do it once. But when you deploy turn, you can trigger 2 undefeated and double them up twice. He's got some pretty good stats as well. He comes as a 6 cost 4/7, which is very good stats for a cost. Like quite a late deploy at 6, not too early like you want with most of them, but stats are still pretty good there. And also he's got the Imperial and Official trait, which Official didn't get really much benefit, but Imperial is a pretty decent one as well. We don't make use of it, but it's cool. And he's in Vigilance as well, so we've got Vigilance and Villainy are the main things against. We can access all the good controlling Villainy, Vigilance stuff, and it means we've got some healing as well to kind of survive a little bit longer. So as a leader, now let's check out the reason why this version of Thrawn exists and why it's going about in this set. So the answer to that would be these 2 cards. Well, mainly one of them than the other. One is better than the other. We have, from the new set, we have the Legacy Run being a new legendary from it, being a new 5-cost ship, and we got Night Sister Warrior as well being a new ground unit. So these are the only 2 new cards we get from, well, not that we get, but we use from the new set, because one just allows us to draw a few more cards, which is pretty nice, and the other one provides a pretty nice way to work the board without using things like Super Laser Blast and losing your own board in the process. So we'll start with the Night Sister Warrior because it's not as important, but it's a 2-cost 2/2 Force Knight unit that when defeated draws a card. So an easy unit you can get on turn 1. Whenever defeated, you can draw a card, and you can use Thrawn to trigger this twice. So instead of drawing 1 card, you draw 2, which is pretty cool. So this gives a nice way to early on get something on the board, start getting swings in. If we were playing the Force package, we can get the Force from it as well, which is generate Force token, and also just get some more card drawing to dig for our deck a little bit deeper. Now, Legacy Run is the thing that makes the yellow version a thing, because it's a 5-cost 3/3 ship, so not an amazing amount, not amazing stats on the card. 5 cost but only 3/3 stats is pretty terrible, but it's more the effect. It also has the traits of Republic Vehicle Transport, so we don't really use those. They're not beneficial in this version, really. But it's got very nice when defeated, where it deals 6 damage divided as you choose among enemy units. Now, we've seen this in other things, like Overwhelm Barrage being one of the most powerful events in the game, having a very strong effect of buff sync and spread damage, equal to the power on the card you've used it on, however you choose. And this is the same thing, but it's a limited amount. Instead of just a certain amount, it's always 6 damage. But you can remember with Thrawn, double this up to do 12 damage, which is really cool. To just throw out 12 damage among your opponent's board is normally going to be a board wipe most of the time. Very powerful, and is a legendary, but luckily it's not going to be an expensive legendary because the card isn't that great outside of this. So we don't have to really worry about this being very, very expensive. But it is a legendary, so it's not too budget, but it's budget enough where this is the only legendary in the deck. So that's pretty nice there. But yeah, the reason why this yellow version has come about is because Legacy Run, being a very fantastic card and doubling up its effect with Thrawn is great. Turning 6 damage is pretty good, but 12 damage is even better. And then while by talking about the Legacy Run, here are some more other space units we run in the deck. So we got Inferno 4, Onyx Squadron Brute, and Elite P-38 Starfighter. These are on earlier turns, and Inferno 4 and Onyx, it's Onyx Squadron Brute. They can both be played on turn 1. If you've got no other turn 1 play, you have to play this. These are pretty nice ones because Inferno 4 are both good stats and costs. They're 2 costs, 2 frees. Same stats, but different effects. Whereas Inferno 4 has also a when defeated ability, just like Onyx Squadron does. It also has one played, so it allows you to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put any number of them on the bottom of your deck and keep any number of them on the top of your deck in any order. So it's a nice way to sneak a peek at the top of your deck and see if there's anything you want, don't want, and move them about. Whereas Onyx Squadron is just got a when defeated where you kill 2 damage from base. So 2's not enough, not much, but you can make it 4 by doubling up with Thrawn, so that's not too bad. So pretty nice units you can play as early as turn 1, give some space focus, because even though there's a lot more Force cards coming out in more Force package, if you're not still able to deal with space, you can get run over by space decks. We have a good amount of spreading out between either arena. And then Elite P-38 is pretty nice as well because it's 3 cost 3/2, which can be reduced by 1 because we've got Krennic spoilers in the deck. And it's got a 1 play, 1 defeated, just like Inferno 4, but its effect is to deal 1 damage to a unit. So chip away at some units, pop some shields off as well. So that way when you come to use the Legacy Run, you can do damage all over rather than have to use some of the damage to pop shields before triggering again. So it's a really nice one, and it allows us to have a bit more damage, a bit more push as well to take out some units. Then we've got the Geonosis Patrol Fighter as well. So this is the we've got Genus, Patrol Fighter, Chimera, and Malevolence as our other space units. So these are the last of our space units. So 6 different space units overall. Well, 7 if you count the Legacy Run. And these are our ways to trigger the Legacy Run because it needs to be defeated, which if your opponent doesn't attack into it or leaves it alone, you're not going to be able to defeat it. But luckily, these 3 are ways to trigger it. So you've got ways to trigger it by defeating it, being Genus, Patrol Fighter, and Malevolence, due to them having Exploit. Exploit being a keyword, which luckily Genus Patrol shows there, being a keyword where you can defeat up any number of units you control equal to the number on the exploit, and you defeat those and make the card you're playing it cost 2 cheaper. So you can reduce the cost of these coming into play, which is pretty nice because they're both quite high cost cards, and make them cheaper to come in and trigger the Legacy Run, as well as having their own effects on them, which are nice one playeds. And then Chimera is another way to do it, but doesn't do it by defeating the unit, but it does by triggering the when defeated on the unit, but leaving it on board so you can then trigger it again, which is pretty nice. It means you can use it, but then still be able to use it again later because you haven't lost the card. So Patrol Fighter and Malevolence both have Exploit. Patrol Fighter having Exploit 2, so it can come down as either a 5, 3, or 1 drop. Whereas Malevolence has Exploit 4, so it can come from either a 9, any range coming down from like 9, 7, 5, 3, or 1. So you can put it down to almost any odd numbered cost, depending on how much you got the Exploit. And also you've got Restore 2, so it gives you a little bit of healing in as well. Now, their one played abilities differ because we've got Genus Patrol Fighter having a nice little kind of bouncing and holding off units by being able to return a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less back to his owner's hand. So that's about one of your opponent's units, or return one of yours back to your hand so you can play it out again later, which is cool. So you're normally using this to bounce your opponent's cards, but you can use it for your own. And then we've got the Malevolence. Its on a play effect is to give an enemy unit -4 power, so where you weaken it a little bit, and make it so it can't attack for this phase. So weaken it and make it so it can't attack this phase, so you can attack into it rather than incurring too much damage back, or just prevent it from attacking, which is nice. Then with Chimera, this is Thrawn's signature ship. That's why it's a 6 cost, because it comes down on his deploy turn. But it can come down a little bit earlier. You can play Legacy Run and then this one after the other. So Legacy Run 1 turn, Chimera the turn after. But you can do this a little bit earlier if you have direct Krennic on the board, which we'll see what Krennic does in a bit. But it's a 5/6, so pretty decent stats. And the way it triggers the Legacy Run is why it's when played, which is you can use the when defeated ability on every friendly unit. So you play out Chimera, you then choose one of your units that have when defeated ability, and you trigger that. And then because it's being triggered, you can then use Thrawn to trigger it again. So while you got Legacy Run on the board from the turn before, so you have 5 resource turn, your 6 resource turn when you can deploy Thrawn, you can play out the Chimera, choose Legacy Run, trigger that for 6 damage about, then trigger Thrawn, and then throw another 6 damage about, then deploy Thrawn, and then go ahead and then potentially take out the Legacy Run by ram it into something like that. So you can then trigger it again and get another 2 triggers out of it. Like the most you can do in a single turn on the deployed turn of Thrawn is for 24 damage across your opponent's board, which is going to wipe out everything they have, which is really, really cool. So those are the ways to those are the rest of our space units we've got, and the ways to trigger Legacy Run. And we got other ways to trigger it. We'll see in a sec when we go over some of the ground units and events. So for the ground units, we've got some more units. We've got some good turn 1 plays here. We've got Greedo, Val, Bazim Natal, and Director Krennic. These are pretty nice. The main one you want to have turn 1, though, is Director Krennic, because he's got a very solid ability. But he's also a 2-cost 2/2 with a shield, so he comes in shielded just like we got with Crafty Smuggler and L337, I think it is. And then it's a nice little ability. Is the first unit you played each round as a when defeated ability cost 1 less. So that means you can play things ahead of turn. So that means you can play Legacy Run on 4 resources rather than 5, and then the Chimera after it on 5 resources rather than 6, which is pretty cool. And then the other ones we've got to make sure we've always got a turn 1 play. We've got something to open with. We've got Greedo, which can come out for free with Krennic. So if you play Krennic, you can play Greedo for free, because remember, it reduces the cost of the next unit you play that round by 1. So Greedo has 0 cost. And it's a free one that has a nice little win fade where you can discard the top card of your deck, and if it's not a unit, deal 2 damage to a ground unit. And you can kind of do this twice with Thrawn, so you can kind of make sure you trigger it or have more options to trigger it, or you can do a double trigger, which is cool. You've got Val, which is a very nice card in this deck. It's a 2-cost 2/4 from set 2 that didn't really see much play or much use, but then with Thrawn, it's got great use now because you can get that when defeat, which is very strong, triggered twice. Now it does have a bounty which allows your opponent to deal 3 damage to a unit, but because it's always gonna be defeated, then your opponent gets to trigger it. But you're normally gonna hope to trigger it on your turn, so that way you get to choose the order of it. So you can do the when defeated, then let your opponent trigger the bounty. Because the when defeated on it is give 2 experience tokens to a friendly unit. That's it. So when it's defeated, not only does your opponent get to deal 3 damage to one of your units, but they also then gets to, well, you then get to give 2 experience tokens to a friendly unit, and if you've got Thrawn trigger still, you give 4 experience tokens to a unit. So having that out, and also remember, because she is a unique unit, you can always play a never copy of Val to trigger it, just like I would Legacy run with unique units that have when defeated. You can play out a never copy on that card, because then, because they're unique, you can't have more than one on board, so one have to be defeated, which then would trigger one of their defeated ones when defeated. So if you've got 2 Vals in hand, you don't mind keeping them, you can play 1 Val, then play the second Val out, kill one of them, and then one of them a trigger to get hopefully 2 when defeateds thanks to Thrawn, and then your opponent will then be able to trigger the bounty. So that's really nice there. And then we got Bazine Natal. Now this is a never win. We don't have many of them. I think we only have 2 copies in the deck because it is a good play. The 2 cost 1 free. That's got a very nice win when played, where you look at your opponent's hand and you can discard a card from it, and if they do, they have to draw a card. So there's a way to kind of look at your opponent's hand, ditch a card you don't want them to have. Very nice, and you can smuggle it out, so there's a card you can always resource and play out later. It's just a never nice play that you have a bit of like hand control to rip out a card your opponent might be holding on, because sometimes, especially with the new set, with people trying to do the ECL base with a new Vader, they try to hold that on, so when you deploy your leader, you can go ECL, take out your leader straight away, or take out 2 things with 1 go. You can play out Bazine, they can't see what they got in hand. If they're just passing and holding on, not doing anything, you can Bazine out and then see what they got in hand, rip out the card that they're holding, like do something against you, and make sure it's gone. They might draw it back, which if they're lucky enough they might do, but there's not often that. And then with the might as well put it with this because we've got 1 copy, but those are all the ground units we've got, so we don't have many ground units outside of Night Sister War in those, because if we want to kind of trigger, there's more of a space focus. Well, there's not many when defeateds for yellow, and the ones we got in blue, we've got probably the better ones in here. But we've also got Hotshot Blast as well, because while this is a red card, it's technically a yellow card. I've never seen it used in a red deck unless it's got yellow as one of the aspects, because it's a 1 cost upgrade. It gives it 2 power, but it can be smuggled in because it's got a smuggle cost, and the smuggle cost has a different aspect being cunning. And when you do smuggle it out, you get attack with it straight away. So it's mainly used in cunning decks because you can smuggle it out. It does cost 2 more, so it costs 3 instead of 1, but you get to do 2 actions, so be action efficient by equipping it, then attacking straight away with it, which is a lot better than just equipping it, waiting an action, then attacking with it. Gives your opponent a way to deal with it before you can attack with it. But by smuggling it, you get to do it all 1 action, so that's really good there. So those are all the units and the 1 upgrade we've got. Now let's have a look at the events and see what we've got here. So with the events, we've only got 6, and we've got 3 cunning ones and 3 vigilance ones. So I've separated them a little bit because you've got the temporary removal or temporary holding of things off in yellow, and then a permanent removal in blue. So that's the kind of differences between the 2 colors, is that yellow gives you temporary removal or holding off, while blue gives you permanent removal. And the yellow cards we got is 2 copies of No Good Me Dead, 3 copies of Sneak Attack, and I think I can't remember if we got 2 or 3 copies of Waylay. You can always check back at the deck list. But these are ones that we've got. No Good Me Dead be a nice one to just, for 2, exhaust the unit and stop it from being able to restand and do anything for 2 turns, which is cool. So nice thing for leaders when you put it deploy as a leader. Keep it down, especially if they're one that needs to attack or doesn't really have like an action that needs to attack to do anything, so they're not really in use for 2 whole turns. And you got Sneak Attack as a way to bring in something cheaper, and it's a nice way to even finish off games by making sure you play out something that can swing in that last bit of damage to your opponent's base, like it will be defeated at the end of the turn. But it comes in for play at 1 less, so you play a little bit cheaper, 1 turn earlier, or 1 cost less, because you have to. It's a 2 cost event that plays a unit from your hand, costing 3 less, and that is play ready. And it's also, since it gets defeated at the end of the turn, you get the triggered as when defeated. So like Legacy Run, Sneak Attack this in, Legacy Run, attack for free, and then spread out 6 or 12 damage, depends if you can use Thrawn, or other things that you can just go in to finish off games. And you got Waylay as just nice temporary removal, just to bounce a non-lead unit back to his owner's hand. And what you only want to do with this is bounce back those ones that are either going to finish you off, so you can hold them off and finishing off, or just go ahead and bounce something they paid more than 3 for. So if they pay like 7 for a unit, bounce it back to hand. They've paid 7 to play it out, most likely tapping stuff out, or you've played 3 to bounce it back to hand, and then you still got resources to do stuff with. So that's a temporary removal. And then we got the blue ones being the permanent removal. So we got Power of the Dark Side, No Glory only results in Rivals Fall. These are permanent removal cards. You've got Power of the Dark Side, just forcing your opponent to defeat a unit they control. You're usually doing this when they've got 1 unit in place, so it forces them to kill that 1 unit. So that's mainly because with this card, where your opponent gets to choose what they defeat, the more units they got, the more likely they're going to hit something they don't care about. Whereas the less units they got, the more they're going to have to lose something they didn't want to lose. And then No Glory results is just essentially an improved Vanquished for Villainy Blue. So we had Vanquished in set 1, which is allow you to defeat any non-leader unit and costs the same 5 resources. But now we've got No Glory only results for the Villainy side, where it does the same thing. Defeats a non-leader unit, but you get to take control of it, then defeated. Now, there are some times when this is not beneficial, and sometimes when it is. Like if you take your opponent's units that have bounties, then your opponent's going to have to claim the bounty because you've taken control of it and then defeated it. And it's the bounties trigger when the opponent, triggered by the opponent of the controller of the bounty, of what the bounty was on. And also some things where, like it's got win defeats, like when you discard a card, you don't want to take control of those kind of units and then discard your own cards. But you can get some benefits, like if your opponent's got a Ruthless Raider or a K2SO out, you're going to take control of those kind of units and to defeat them, to get rid of them, and then trigger the win defeats on there as yours. Be able to like I've done it in games, you probably see from the gameplay that I've done with the red version I played this week. So I have played Thrawn this week, so it kind of ties in well there. I played Thrawn this week, but I'm going with the yellow version for the next set. With Thrawn, I was able to do for the red version, like use No Glory results to take my opponent's K2SO of it, defeat it. Now I get the trigger to when defeated. And since it's a when defeated, I can trigger it a second time with Thrawn. So I was able to go take your K2SO, trigger K2SO, make you discard a card. Thrawn trigger again, make you discard 2 cards. And that's great. Taking a unit, defeating it, and making it discard 2 cards is just the best version of this. Or even take your opponent's Ruthless Raider and get the trigger to when defeated to do 2 damage to a unit and their base twice, which is very, very nice. So it's more of a benefit than it is a negative, and it really helps with the mirror, where the mirror just becomes horrible. If you play something, your opponent plays something out with one defeat, you get to take it and trigger it, and they can do it to you, so it's quite hard there. And we got a copy of Rivals Fall because you want to take out leaders. And sometimes if you don't have Legacy Run to do just throw out the damage, you just want to take it out. Make sure, because there's some leaders you just don't want to have out. So you got Rivals Fall in there to make sure you take them out straight away. And if you don't need to take it out onto a leader, like your opponent's got a lower health or earlier deployed leader, you can take out by just units attacking or by Legacy Run, then you can save this for taking out something big your opponent might play. So that is the whole list. So we've gone over the whole list, explaining the reasons of cards. I've done a lot of testing with it, so I haven't really changed much. I did originally have what was her name, Morgan Elsbeth in there to help trigger, but then the whole taking your 4 resource turn to play out waited turn to be able to, and then hope whatever you played beforehand survives and plays like out after Legacy Run, then swing in for to trigger, kind of gives too many actions that your opponent can then respond to in between to kind of cut you off. So turn out for some more exploit. And yeah, there's not many more exploit cards. Like you can put in the, I'm trying to think now. You can put in the I think I remember what is it called, those droids. Is the droids that have exploited and become a sentinel. You could put those in and have a sentinel for the ground area, but then you're still having to play 2 or 4, depending on what you exploit with it, which I think is great. So I just up the GNS Patrol Fighter to a 3 of, and I think I upped the Onyx Squadron, which was a 2 before, up to 3 as well, because it's a good unit and you want to have that healing down. But also, like I said, there's a turn when you can, on your deploy turn you potentially do 24 damage, and that looks like this. So you need to have Krennic out on, actually no, like, yeah, you need to have Krennic out on the board. I've played the Legacy Run the turn before you deploy, so you had 5 resource turn. So I have Krennic out from before. Play Legacy Run out on your turn 5 turn resources. Then on your turn 6 resources, or your 6 resource turn when you can deploy Thrawn, you can then before you deploy Thrawn, play Chimera at 5 because Krennic's on the board, and then trigger the trigger Legacy Run for 6 damage about. Trigger Thrawn to do it a second time and trigger another 6 damage, so that's 12 damage altogether you've thrown on your opponent's board. and then deploy Thrawn, and then use Genius Patrol Fighter to defeat Legacy Run another unit, either Krennic or Chimera, whichever one you want, to then play it out as a 1 cost because he's got Exploit 2, and then trigger Legacy Run again for 6 damage. And then because Thrawn's now deployed, you can do it when double trigger when defeated again, to then for another 6 damage, doing 24 damage over 1 whole turn to take out your opponent's entire board and whatever they might play the turn after as well. So taking out the board, plus leader, plus anything else in my playing. So you can get that whole bar. It's not often you'll do that, but then still, most of the time on a turn, you're going to get Legacy Run, still have Thrawn ready to use, and just go trigger Legacy Run, 6 damage, and then 12. 12 damage you're going to do regularly. Often, sometimes you might trigger another one defeated them, have Legacy Run, it might get triggered, so you only do 6, but most of the time you're going to do 12 damage, and spreading out 12 damage across your opponent's board every so often, especially when you can do it with Chimera and then trigger again and the turn after when it's just defeated, is very cool. So that is it from me today. So thank you for watching, and feel free to like, comment, and subscribe because it helps the channel out greatly. And we're still on our way to 2,000 subs, which we're getting closer and closer to. And this is the first of set 1. I don't have a sideboard for this because I've just been testing the idea. I haven't really tested for the meta because I haven't seen what the meta is going to be like. But just the idea that it seems not the most competitive, but it's a load of fun, and it's a cool way to make use of some cards and see what kind of things older leaders get from a newer set to kind of make them a little better, give them more options. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next one. Bye for now.